Okay, Drew Goddard, congratulations on your Oscar nomination. How did it feel when you got the news?
Oh, it was surreal. It's still surreal. It's one of those things that just, when I was growing up in New Mexico, the Oscars, it actually seemed easier to go to Mars than it seemed to go to the Oscars. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about The Martian. What got you involved in this project and what spoke to you about it?
I was first sent the book when it was an ebook. Andy Weir was just giving it away chapter by chapter over the course of 3 years. And our producer, Aditya Sood, found it. And Aditya and I have known each other for years. And he sort of said, Drew, check this out. And I honestly didn't understand what he was sending me. I'm kind of a Luddite when it comes to this stuff. And I said, it's not a book yet. He's like, well, we think it'll get a publishing deal, but we have the movie rights. So see what you think. And I read it and was hooked from the first sentence.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about bringing it from the page to the screen. What was the writing process like?
I mean, for me, it all starts with love. Like I try to only work on projects that speak to me emotionally and that I love. And that makes the hard parts easy, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I just sort of sit down. I read all of William Goldman's stuff when I was starting out, and I still stick to what he teaches. I take the book and highlight it and sort of pick out my favorite parts and pick out what I need to protect, and then start thinking about what's the central theme or idea of the book that we can build around. Because with any adaptation, you have to make hard decisions. You're going to have to cut things that you love, and it helps if you can build around a central idea and give yourself a spine.
Mm-hmm. Well, what were some of the toughest things that you had to cut?
There's certainly, I don't know, in the book, in the sort of back half of the book, Mark Watney's journey from the hab where he lives to the Mav, it's about 120 pages. And, on screen, I think it ended up being about 3 minutes of screen time.
Wow.
You get a lot out of a montage and beautiful Ridley Scott photography. That's for sure. But it's the hardest part. It's the thing I miss the most. But at the end of the day, the movie would have been 5 hours. So I had to, we had to make some tough calls.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about Watney's character. He's very optimistic and very smart, even in the face of these great challenges. So you could talk about writing that character.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what his spirit is. What ultimately is what spoke to me about the book, and made me want to do it. This sort of optimism in the face of despair. I don't know. It resonated with me, and I felt like it was something we haven't seen a lot of in science fiction. The optimism, and it's not just him. It's every character in the book has this sort of compassion for his or her fellow man. And if you look at the first thing he does in the book is he tells he's recording what's going on, and he tells his commander that it wasn't her fault that he got hurt and left behind. His first instinct is to look out for her, and that's sort of what everyone does. Everyone is constantly worrying about each other, and I just liked that. It felt fresh in a way. It felt like something you don't see a lot of in science fiction, which tends to be very dystopian and dark. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I like dark and dystopian too, but it felt like an opportunity to do something different.
Right, definitely. And the interesting thing too is that so much of the movie is just his character stranded alone. Was it difficult writing that? Something that is in a lot of instances kind of a one-man show?
Yeah, it's funny. Simon Kinberg, who is our producer, one of our producers, and is a screenwriter himself, when I first took the job, he said, that's going to be really hard to just have a character by himself. for the most of the movie. And I said, I know, but it's kind of what excites me. I think it gets boring when you're doing the same old scenes. And I think that I just sort of felt like it was one of those challenges that was worth attempting. I mean, it was hard, is the truth, because the problem is we never wanted to have exposition for the sake of exposition. It just felt like that would get tedious very quickly. Mm-hmm. And so I think the thing that cracked it for us was the idea that he's talking to the camera because this is what's keeping him alive, that the science and the mission is actually why he hasn't just walked outside and died, that talking about what he is doing is actually illuminating his own character. And that became the thing that cracked it. Because and when you look at all of the scenes of him talking, it's really just a man struggling to survive and finding purpose in the little time he thinks he has left.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, you do go down to earth in a couple of scenes that are set in mission control where they're trying to figure out how to get this guy back. And then later on, you go to the ship that left him behind. Was it difficult balancing these scenes structurally?
No, honestly, that part was actually welcome. At a certain point when you get at a certain point when you're writing, you're thinking, "Oh God, it'd be so nice if someone else could talk for a little bit." And then that's usually a sign to cut away. You sort of go on instinct and find that balance.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that I think people really like about this movie is the fact that it celebrates science and it's very smart about science, but it also makes it understandable and relatable to an audience. Was that difficult to do as a writer?
Yeah, it was, and we weren't sure, quite honestly, until our first test screening if it was going to work, because we set out, and Ridley felt this very strongly too. We set out and said we don't want to dumb this movie down. If we dumb it down, I don't know what we have left. But but it's scary until, we have complicated scenes about radioactive thermonuclear isotopes. It's like, that's not necessarily the scintillating stuff of box office. So it wasn't until we screened it and the audience immediately said we love the science that we all breathed a heavy sigh of relief.
Mm-hmm. Well, what kind of research did you have to do in order to make that accurate?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first, my biggest resource was Andy Weir and his book. Mm-hmm. Because he had written it over 3 years and was giving it away chapter by chapter, he was essentially crowdsourcing the edit. And so when he would make scientific mistakes in the text, people would correct him, and scientists who were reading his work would sort of put it through the paces. So by the time it got to me, it had already had this sort of first layer of vetting. Then JPL, the Jet Propulsion Lab, is actually 20 minutes from my house here in Los Angeles. So I would just go over there and just hang out. JPL is great. You can just go there. You can just hang out. You just call and make an appointment, and they'll tour you around.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's getting harder after our movie. There's a lot more demand, I think, which is a good problem to have. But yeah, so I would do that, and then once I finished the script, then we put it through the NASA. We brought NASA into it, and we sent them the first draft, and they told me all the places I had screwed up, and we fixed it.
Yeah. Talk about working with Ridley Scott when he came on board. What did he bring to it that helped you along?
Well, one of the things that's fun is when people ask me what's it like to work with Ridley, I can just point to The Martian and say that's what it's like. I mean, if you look at the sort of warmth and compassion and camaraderie amongst colleagues, like that's what Ridley Scott set is like. Those scenes in JPL where they're all, making fun of each other and yet struggling to solve impossible problems. That's what a production meeting is like on a Ridley Scott set. And it's delightful. Like his soul is what is on the screen. All the Martian is, it's many people, but it is filtered through Ridley. And and it's fun. When I watch the movie now, I can just point to it and go, that's what Ridley's like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's great because, I mean, the whole movie is about ingenuity, and that's what filmmaking is, you know?
Yeah, it's one of those connections I didn't make, while we were working on it. It wasn't until afterwards that I watched it and went, oh, this is exactly my life, is people calling me and telling me what we originally planned was impossible. And you now have 6 hours to write 30 new pages and come up with a new solution. I watched the JPL scenes and I'm like, oh, when he just goes, okay, I'm going to need a change of clothes. Like, that's just me doing production rewrites. Like, I didn't put that together, but that's what's fun about making movies, is you sort of examine yourself in new ways once it's done.
Mm-hmm. Well, what is your writing process like? I'm sure a lot of aspiring writers would like to know. I mean, are you someone who gets up at 8 o'clock in the morning and, are you like Hemingway with a bottle of scotch, or what?
I've tried to drink while writing and it never goes well for me. After about 2 drinks, I go, okay, why am I writing again? Let's just go screw around. Yeah, no, look, the process changes. It's changed over the years, but I try to write by hand. I try to write outside. I try to not be inside an office. Like, I feel like it's important to not be, attached to the internet, especially when doing dialogue, because it can really, I find my writing gets mechanical. And if I can just sit outside, it's almost like I'm sketching. And I find that works much better. So I tend to write in the mornings. I'm up early, so I write first thing. And usually by lunch, I've got a lot of pages handwritten, and then after lunch I will go input them into the computer.
Mm-hmm. You've had a lot of experience, to say the least, in the science fiction genre. What were some of your great influences when you were coming up that made you decide to become a writer?
I mean, it's Ridley. That's what's been so crazy about this experience for me, is that I saw Blade Runner when I was 7, I think, and it changed my life. Like, my head exploded, and that movie I still watch that movie, once every couple of months, and I'm still blown away by how current it both looks and feels, and between that and Alien, all of us who have been working in science fiction since have been struggling to do anything that's not influenced by those 2 movies. Like, they're the 2, they're lodestones for the genre. And so, half of my experience on The Martian was just me bothering Ridley and poking him and saying, please tell me Blade Runner stories.
Did he tell you any great ones?
Yeah, I mean, he always does. I can't really think of anything that leaped to mind off the top of my head, but if you ever have a chance, there's no one more fun to talk to than Ridley Scott about his movies. Like, he really is an enthusiast for what he does, and they just pour out of him.
Well, I hope to do that one day.
Yeah.
So this is your first Oscar nomination. What would it mean to you if you were to win?
It's funny. One of the things that happens, and this is all very new to me, but one of the things that happens when you get nominated is people immediately start asking about if you'd win or not. and it is such a road to get here, just to the nomination, that you just want to go, hey, can I just be happy with this? Is that okay? Like, I don't, I'm really honored. I'm really happy that I got nominated, and I don't want to act like, oh, if I don't win, that it's some sort of failure. Like, I'm so happy right now. It's so nice. I mean, look, it's all bonus from this point. Like, it's all, I don't know. Look, the truth is, I would be really happy that the movie got recognized. We're really proud of this movie, and we're really proud of our director. And I feel like as all of us who work in this business know, any nomination that a person gets, that a crew member gets for a movie, reflects on its director. And it's the sort of thing that I would love to be able to call Ridley and say thank you. You know, I do that every day anyway, but I think you know, that would be the part for me that would be really lovely, is because I just adore him so much, and so, you know, it's nice for sure.
Well, it's a great movie, and congratulations on your nomination and on the movie success.
Zach, thank you so much. This was fun.
Yeah, it was fun too. Thank you very much.
All right.
All right. Have a good day.
Take care.
You too. Bye.